We'll start with the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is approval of minutes. They've been read and reviewed. Except the 20, just the 13th, right?
Yeah, I didn't get to the other ones.
Okay.
I'll
for
move
June
I'll
13th.
move the June 13th minutes.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, first order of business is RDA on Route 114, Mass DOT.
Plan out here. This is the revised set from
Yeah,
today.
I can tell.
Okay.
Thank you. I had printed if they wanted them, but
So you have both the revisions that I got today. So there's a smaller set of plans. There were some resource area deficiencies on the first set, so they've been updated. And there's a letter that explains what the changes are. So the left hand's the changes, Al. Yep. Okay.
you guys all set?
Go ahead, yeah.
Hi, I'm Sandy Sprague. I work for Mass DOT for District 4. We're doing a small project. It's the start of rehabbing 114 before we get to doing a bigger project later down, 10 years down the road. This is a mill and pave, reconstruct some sidewalks that need to be rehabbed, and building a new sidewalk in front of the plaza at the end of 114. We start around Peters Street, which is, can I change this?
Oh.
You go to the first sheet? Oh, yeah. Keep going up, there you go. So we added a resource area here. That original one didn't have it. It's not on the DEP website, so we didn't realize it was there. This is a little bit of riverfront. The only work in there is mill and pave, which is taking 2 inches off the road, adding 2 inches. And then we're changing out an existing wheelchair ramp with a new ADA compliant one. So it's no change in function, just change in style of it. Then we go down, nothing else for resource for the other little bit in North Andover, until we get to the area of the entrance to the plaza itself. The work in North Andover, going through it all, I was actually kind of surprised. The North Andover-Lawrence line runs right along the same as our right-of-way line. So almost all the work is in Lawrence, except for one wheelchair ramp at the entrance and a little bit of paving that we're doing there at the entrance, and that's your work in this resource area here for North Andover. There is where we're putting the wheelchair ramp. It's existing sidewalk now. We're just taking out one panel and putting in ADA compliant wheelchair ramp and doing a curb cut. This area, you're in bordering land subject to flooding, so we have to make sure that we're not increasing any elevation. We're meeting all standards, the 3 standards. You can't increase anything that's going to change water flow. We're not doing that. We're not in priority habitat, and we're not in any need of doing compensatory storage, because we're actually adding storage by putting a wheelchair ramp in, because that's lower than your other part. And mill and pave is the same, 2 inches down, 2 inches up, so we're not changing any elevation there. We did change some other stuff, talking with Jennifer the last couple days. Her concern was the flow, the work that's being done in Lawrence, actually you're discharging into North Andover, so we're changing out the catch basins in this region to deep sump catch basins. We're gonna make them so it's a better water quality improvement coming this way. And we added the existing stream, because for some reason it wasn't put on the first one.
Yeah, the buffer zone to that isn't exactly right. It's only perennial about halfway down, because,
That's where he ended it. The,
Did
is
he-
actually where the crossing is to the wetland across the way.
oh, we did? Okay.
Yeah.
There is, the problem is the stream continues up, so there's still buffer zones. So the
Okay.
plan isn't, I've cited when I wrote the determination that we're not confirming any resource
Okay,
areas
yeah,
with
no,
this
this
plan.
is
I think
just-
it's more of an awareness that
Yeah.
they're there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this whole area is in resource area. You're in bordering land subject flooding. You're in a riverfront for North Andover. Actually, you're not in riverfront for North Andover work, but you are in buffer zone.
I think, just as a FYI for going forward, if you could ever overlay these on aerials, just
We can do that.
to, in the future, just, it's easier to know where you are than look at these. I
Yeah.
think it,
Every town's different. I work with 62 towns. You all want
Yeah.
something different. So just let me know in the future,
yeah,
like to say,
in
hey.
the future.
Yeah,
It
this-
would, it would be easier, because it's very, I don't know about you, but I find it difficult to figure out where I am on these. I'm sure Joe's an expert, but,
Always right along.
yeah.
So, yeah, so we meet all for bordering land subject to flooding. The work, since it's existing work we're not changing any functions of your sidewalk. You know, we're not adding sidewalk, we're not widening anything, we're not doing any of that. It's taking out a panel, putting a new one in for the 2 sections. So there's erosion control everywhere, you can see on the plans, and then all our catch basins will have silt sacks in it, so.
Joe? This may not be a fair question for the applicant's rep. But when Market Basket was in for this road compliant, very long ago, there was some discussion about the slope between the elevated portion above their parking lot of 114, and that there was a project coming forward that was going to change. That's not happening yet.
Not as part of this, but that is their intention, and you are not changing the outlets, correct? Once
No,
the deep sump catch basins will go in, but they'll still outlet in the same place, and there is riprap on that slope and that sort of thing. But I know Market Basket, the first time I met with DOT about this, Market Basket, they kind of did it as a coordinated meeting, so they do intend to file soon as well for improvements to the culvert at the other end. They did this end, and they're going to do the other end, and
Over the Christmas tree lot?
yeah, and try to, I don't want to call it a dredging project, but let's just say remove the parking lot solids that seem to have deposited themselves in that stream.
That's where it all stockpiles and that's
So
where it all
our,
melts.
our deep sumps will help with them with that
Right.
too, so I'm sure we're contributing a little too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So, this is just a mill and fill, that's all you're doing, so you're not adjusting any structures, you're gonna grade everything, hold the existing
Well,
structures?
Where, you mean the catch basins?
The frames and covers.
Yeah, those are all they'll be actually replaced because this is a high traffic zone. We have to, for safety reasons, actually change everything. And that's a standard protocol. It's all exempt work is that we
So
can
I'm gonna ask
adjust.
the silt sock question, when those frames and covers are out before the new ones get in, what are you doing with drainage and controlling the drainage and controlling
They don't-
silts getting into them?
It's usually done that night, like it's a one-night job for them to go through. And all this work should be done at work at night. I don't know of any work that they are planning, maybe some of the sidewalk, I'm not sure on
My
that one. But
commuting would better be at night.
I know, this area is bad, which is the project you'll like in 10 years when they're widening everything, I think, to 4 lanes. But yes, no, so our typical way is at night, like where they're working on it, yes, it's removed, but if it's not, they should have a silt sack.
All right, so nothing's getting plated over, for any length of time.
That's means and methods, and I don't know that. I can't,
So I'm just concerned with
Yeah.
maintaining drainage control, and because we're maintaining drainage control, we're able to control any silts or any migration of solids that find their way into the drain
the
system.
plan right now is silt sacks. It's not in our spec right now of writing out, saying, covering them completely until they get there, because it is a mill and pave. It's not quite like some of the other work of keeping things going. But yeah, so if it's, until they raise everything, they should have a silt sack. I don't know the exact process of how long everything takes of going out there, but there should be a silt sack per their, even SWIP, they should have one out there.
This is Peter Street all the way down to the other side of the bridge at the interchange, so that's,
Yeah.
we're not talking a one-week project, we're talking, a month.
Yeah.
Couple
it's-
months.
Yeah, they'll be out there for a little bit, yeah. So they should have, I've never known not to have them out there, so, I mean, I don't know I can't exactly. I've worked in construction a little, but not to know.
I mean, I didn't, they did 125, and I didn't have any issues. I never saw anything unprotected or open for a night or
Just
anything like that.
114, right?
Much flatter.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I never saw basins missing or covers, blocked, or however they're doing it, they're doing it as they
This is a flood zone, I
go.
understand your concern.
That water's moving down, we gotta
Yeah.
be able to still capture it, and at the same token, filter out the solids
Yep.
that are finding their way down after the grinding process.
Yeah.
Sweeping's only gonna pick up so much.
Yeah.
And I'm also concerned, what about when they're replacing the basins?
So the basins, so we're actually, depending on, I mean, if they're bad basins, they have to they
Well, you're
rebuild
putting
them.
in the deeper sumps,
Right, so then you can keep the top part, and they just dig out the bottom and recast the bottom part.
I just have a couple. You said you were District 4, is this District 5?
Nope, we're District 4.
Is it
District
4?
5 is the Cape.
Oh, okay.
They realigned.
'Cause I-
Oh, yeah, a long time ago. Way back, it was District 5, yeah. The guys I work with, all my bosses are District 5.
Long time then. I'm dating myself.
10 years at least.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Or more like 20.
That's not, I've been plowing that road since 71. That ain't no. There's no discussion on extending, that's the most dangerous spot, that they're not putting any sidewalk in between the Tribune and Boston Chicken. Is there-
Not with this project, no.
Not for this project. When you widen it, will that be included?
I'm not sure what's happening. That is,
Because a person got killed there, that's why I'm
yeah,
saying.
I don't know, and that's a good question, and I highly suggest you going to your NPOs and putting it into the DPW or whoever you can talk to about making sure that, because I think they're in pre-25 design right now for a lot of that. So if you have concerns, please put it in for them into writing through the town way of doing it. I don't know who your contact is that way.
I don't know. That'd be what, DPW director?
The town
I could-
engineer? The
Yeah,
town
I could
engineer.
ask.
Between,
This wouldn't be a town project.
No, it wouldn't be a town project.
No, but the town has the input, like on stuff like that, so they can,
That-
the
that's
town,
the
they
worst
meet with the
place not
towns
to
for
have a
that way, so.
like, we didn't even require it for,
And there's no wetlands, so even any
no.
right of way or any, widening, box widening, you wouldn't get into any of the.
Not for you guys, no. But as a town person, please put it into, put your request into the town engineer that he can
I
discuss.
can ask him.
So this is a maintenance project
Yeah.
using other funds. The TIP project is something that's still on the horizon.
This
Still
is,
pre-25.
yeah, the big tip project, yes. It's, I was told 10 years out, or at least 10 years. Sorry, you
I don't think
you didn't-
that's the understanding
Some of
around.
my career was on one project, was waiting for it to clear the tip.
I know.
That 114 is gonna be it's a big project.
It's in like phases. I think I heard there was at least 2 phases of 114. I don't know where one is one or not, because I just
Some
heard
of
it
that-
today,
some
talking to
of
my
that
boss.
road's concrete. That's
So-
gonna be a mess.
Future concerns for a future file. This
Yes.
one's pretty straightforward.
This one's straightforward.
No questions?
Okay, motion?
So I recommend, they do have they have the exemption under the Wetlands Protection Act, so I would just say it's a negative number 2, because there is bordering land subject to flooding and riverfront, so you're in resource area technically, with conditions for a pre-construction inspection when you get the erosion controls in, and then post when they want to take them out, kind of thing.
Like to add the condition of weekly monitoring reports or stormwater reports after major events of, any rain event of more than 1 inch.
You want the SWIP reports then?
Because you're still filing a SWIP under this anyway, right?
Yeah,
Well,
You would be, sure you would.
SWIPs are 1 acre of disturbed soil. So roads aren't considered disturbed soils, but we are doing.
So you're
the-
probably not fine with it.
But we're adding, we're adding the sidewalk.
Regardless of whether it's a SWIP or not, I'd just like
Yeah.
to get the report. That way, at least we know that that drainage functionality is.
So 1
I
inch or
can
more, or you want a half inch or more?
What do we typically do?
Half.
Half inch more.
That's
You
fine.
know, in the 24-hour period.
Gotcha.
I'll just make sure that they put a SWIP report in, or a SWIP item in.
That can be revisited during the pre-construction anyway.
And so I didn't, with the new plans, I didn't see where it says that the catch basins will be replaced.
Go up, go again, so the new sidewalk, you'll see rebuild deep sump
Oh,
to deep
yeah,
sump catch
okay.
basins. So wherever you have that, there was a catch basin.
Gotcha.
So there's no additional catch basins, it's just rehabbing the old ones.
So Cindy, are you in district environmental office or just,
Environmental engineer.
because that's not how they rebuild catch basins. They're not going to
Well,
follow
I
the
asked-
bottom and,
I asked the
they're
question.
going to take the whole
and that's-
basin apart and put a precast.
Yeah, I
in its
figured
place.
they'd
They're
use
gonna-
precast.
They're not going to do it the other way.
I asked the question, and I expected that, and they said, oh, no, we can do this. I said, okay. I said, don't lie to me, just give me the straight answer.
We have something to talk about tomorrow with your colleagues.
Looking for a motion?
So moved, as Jim made it.
Okay, one second. One second.
So Jen, I guess I made it, because Jen made the conversation, I
Oh,
added
okay.
to it, so that's my motion.
All
Joe
those in favor
Dem.
say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Get it one at a time. Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks.
Is 730 Mass Ave.
So this is an after-the-fact filing for placement of a generator. You have the RDA in front of you as well as some photos. The generator, generally, as you know, we've been signing off on generators that are outside of the no-build zone. Oops, I lost my casting, sorry. This one is not outside the no-build zone. And so there's a request for a waiver to leave it where it is. And
You said it wasn't wired. It's wired, just not powered, correct?
that's my understanding, right? It's wired, but you haven't figured out the source of, you were talking, you didn't put propane tanks on here, so I'm not sure what
Yeah,
the
correct.
plan is.
Yeah, good evening, I'm Brian Logue, with a contractor installing this for the homeowner. It is a gaseous type generator, liquid propane or natural gas. They do not have natural gas on the property. They are talking with Columbia Gas about that as an option, but they are planning to go with propane tanks for now, and looking to set those on the lot somewhere out of the, or in the one location that we talked about during our site visit.
Okay, so that would also still be within jurisdiction, but not within, well, it's hard to say, it's probably still within 50 feet.
It's pretty close.
I have some additional aerials of the
How big of a propane tank are they talking? 50?
They're talking 3 100-pound cylinders.
Just for the generator?
Yeah. Just for the fact that they're behind a fence and they need to be able to get the tanks out of there for an emergency, so they can't get a truck back there, so they have to be able to, move them by hand. So instead of putting, a 500 or 1,000 gallon tank down there, this is something that they could hide behind an existing stone wall, so the customer doesn't have to look at them either.
That's a lot of propane.
2 pounds an hour.
Yeah, but I mean, that's really not, it's really not.
One day generator.
What's the rate of consumption on the generator, you know?
On this generator, I believe it's somewhere around 5.5 per hour.
It is a big generator.
5.5 gallons per?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pounds per hour.
I'm sorry?
Pounds per hour.
Pounds per hour.
Pounds. We measure it in pounds, not gallons?
Propane.
Yeah.
I buy it in gallons.
I buy it in gallons too.
Yeah, I really do.
Yeah.
So you're talking pounds, not gallons?
pounds on gallon.
Pounds not gallons, so I don't know.
Because the
I don't-
point of that
I don't know
conversation is-
I don't know the conversion rate of pounds to gallons.
I'm not either, I'm not the gas expert.
You the electrician?
I'm the electrician.
So that was an interesting conversation, but what I don't boil it down to is there's a separate need that's not before us tonight, and that's gonna be where these cylinders go. They're gonna be, if they're three
So-
100-pound cylinders, they're gonna be
They
above
want them
grade.
right here. See, behind the, can you see my little pointer there? Moving behind the upper part of the
I
house?
see it now, yep.
That's where they want to put them.
And again, that's, the customer is talking with Columbia Gas. I guess there is a line on Mass Ave. So they are talking with Columbia about bringing that line to the house as another option as well.
Well,
So I guess my only caution is, that I'm not even gonna speculate the situation with the cylinders, but we're only acting on this that's before us now. There is
Well,
likely
I
to
don't
be
think
something else that's
you're
gonna-
not going to want to file again for,
And I'm not the one that's responsible for that. That's a separate, that's again with the
gonna have to
customer's
file it.
decision on that. We're just here for placement of the generator.
well, and that is a problem, because this generator, there is an alternative with tanks flow,
Well,
which you don't have. This,
let me ask him the question first, though, because he's the electrician.
yeah.
If you wouldn't mind,
Sure.
run through the process that you used to select the location for the generator.
It was a site walk with the customer, looking at places where we could put a generator for him, where we could be code compliant away from windows, and also out of line of sight. So again, the customer doesn't want to look at it in his front yard and, sitting out back by his swimming pool, he also does not want to look at a generator. It's not a very small item that can be hidden very easily. So it really didn't leave us a lot, and the other side of the house is a driveway. So it doesn't leave us a lot of options as to where to place this. This seemed to be the most logical location to meet, where we could keep it as close to the house as possible and still get as far away from any resource area as possible, but then still not be an eyesore for the customer.
That wasn't the answer I was looking for, I'll be honest with you. I was kind of hoping you'd give me something that related to the location of the service, the length of the run.
I would love to give you that. That's on the other end of the house,
Why
where the
didn't-
driveway is.
Why didn't, I also am an electrician.
Sure.
Why wouldn't that generator be closer to the service?
Because it would be in his driveway or in the front of his house. And those are two, for obvious reasons, not gonna work for him as a homeowner.
The trouble we have here on this commission is aesthetics is not a condition that we look at for an alternative location. When we look at alternatives analysis, your alternative has to be to avoid, minimize, mitigate locations to a resource area. Aesthetics isn't on the list. So with that, I'll let it go down the table.
Well,
But
that's why I asked, if he goes with natural gas, he could put it on the side house where he was gonna put the tanks. Where
Well,
you
what
gonna,
I'm- what I'm
you're gonna
hearing
put
is-
the tanks in the side house, right?
The tanks are gonna be behind the house.
Behind the house.
Would you call that behind the house?
Yep.
John?
Yeah.
how
But
far-
still within the resource area.
Yeah.
it's probably not much, another 10 feet maybe back. It's still within the 50.
Well, the only reason I'm asking the question, I'm not trying to be a pain, right, but they're requesting a waiver. Waiver requests require an alternatives analysis. What I just heard didn't constitute an alternatives analysis.
Right, and there is behind the house on the driveway side too, so I'm not sure how that,
I'm just looking, I'm trying to grasp onto something here. I'm looking for a way to help out, and I'm having a hard time finding it.
Like Mr. Manzi says, aesthetics is not one of them, or financial gain is not another one. And we don't, and you gotta come before us, well, I don't know who would come, Mr. Riley would have to come before us again for the propane tanks. We don't even,
Or the gas service, regardless of what he
yeah,
does.
they'd have to trench for
Regardless of
gas
what he does to fuel
service.
it, he's gonna have to come back before us.
so,
So that's what, my point was, if we were so inclined to consider only the generator's location, I don't want anybody to walk out of this meeting thinking they're all set. They still have got another action before this committee
That's
sometime in
fine.
the future.
But what I'm getting at is,
But you may not be even set with the location.
I mean, unless, I'm not gonna ask you more questions, I'll let it go down.
I'm all set for now, I just, I'm uncomfortable with, we have a lot of questions and I'm not getting answers.
Well, the problem is, too, the process has been, we decided some time ago with the various chairs that there are just so many generators that it doesn't make sense to bring every single person in to permit them. So if they can get them out of the no-build zone, we approve them administratively, basic like a administrative small project
50 feet
approval.
away.
Right, and so I meet with a lot of people, and and we decide on locations and whatever, and if they do have to be in the 50, then we have them file and go through the process. But generally speaking, you know, we find ways to get them out of the 50. So for everybody who's done that process, this seems a little, just because it's there, we're
You
going to leave
didn't
it.
go as far as to say, so I'm going to ask the question. You say generally and typically, those are great words. What happened here at the permitting process when they came in for electrical, what triggers it, these conversations with other
So
applicants?
the
They
permit
come in
comes
for-
to me and I sign off on it. The problem is, a lot of times we go out there and they're already installed, and that's not, you know, if they do the work, it's at their peril.
So there was this.
I hadn't signed
for whatever
off on the
reason,
permit.
This didn't get to town hall. We didn't know about it before it went in.
No, we had an application for the permit, but they went ahead and installed the generator without approval on the permit.
So that's the problem. Because otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here tonight.
Right.
Yeah,
We would have given them the other locations.
We do a
and say-
lot of, well, I should say we. She does a lot of, we eliminated, we do it in-house. I call it in-house.
No, I just want to be clear. I'm more than curious. I want to be, typically, someone will come in, apply for a permit, and through the Form U circulation, everybody who has any jurisdiction will get an opportunity to say, we need to consider this on whatever the project is, from a highway, to a house construction, to an addition, to installation of a generator. Septic systems, all those things go through that process, and it gives an applicant the opportunity to flush out the issues before they become issues.
Right.
Because of whatever happened in the course of the permitting process to cause us to get built before the permitting process ever, certainly before it was ever completed, if not even started, that's how this came to be. So beyond the alternatives, they denied themselves the opportunity to consider those alternatives by going that way.
Right, it's a phrase, ask for permission to beg for forgiveness, right?
But they're not, the problem is they're not done. I mean, they still got to put
But Louis,
locations in tanks.
Louis, we can't even talk about the tanks unless we know this is staying where it is.
I don't think it has to stay there.
Well, see, this is what I'm saying. There's nothing, talking about tanks or an underground line is irrelevant. The location of the generator needs to be approved first, or not.
All right, so we dance around. We're saying is get the generator 50 feet away. And if you can't get it 50, give us a compelling reason why the
Well,
waiver's
I'm saying, I
warranted.
don't think there was an alternatives analysis done. That's
No,
what I'm
there
saying.
was- there was
So,
not.
so when, everybody that comes in here, we have a dozen people on this agenda that are asking for waivers, that we tell them to go out and do alternatives analysis. I don't think that we would be wise or well-served to even consider a waiver without the same treatment on this project. It would be crazy.
Well, he has to come before us again.
But I mean, we gotta give him instructions, because this gentleman is the generator guy. The next person that comes in is gonna be someone else, so we've gotta give some guidance and tell them what we want. I don't think we can just casually say, go home.
I'm gonna pretend we're a different board for a second. If we were the zoning board and someone had a building permit pending to build something and decided to ignore the sideline setbacks and got too close to a sideline or a rear line or a front line, they would be before the zoning board and they would be telling them to comply, move it, take it down or whatever. I think because they didn't go through the process and because they started this work without the process, they denied themselves that opportunity to give us something that would comply, that we would let be an RDA. And this is an RDA. I mean, if this came in as a full-blown NOI, we'd still be saying no.
So perhaps we would be wise to ask the applicant to
Withdraw.
not withdraw, but continue and come in with an alternatives analysis, something that we can consider.
That's not what you were saying.
I know what Joe's saying, but I'm trying to give the guy a chance.
Let him do the analysis, but I
Do
don't
the
want him, I don't want him to
analysis.
put a hell of a lot of effort into it if in fact there are other alternatives that
But we
in fact
won't
allow it.
know, we won't know. Let's give him a chance to make the effort and give an alternative,
I hear you.
or produce one, because, you know, we can't anticipate what might be the answer. We just don't know. We don't.
Well, I'm fine with that, but you did give him an option. You did give him that, and the only thing.
It was an unprepared
Yeah,
quiz, and I
it was-
apologize for doing
Yeah,
that.
no, but honesty comes out of unprepared questions.
Well-
Statements sometimes, and you said afterwards, you know, what I was looking for was something more service-oriented, and
You know, I probably should have just kept my mouth shut. I'd like to get an alternatives analysis and just see if we can,
Jim, what's the distance from the foundation of the house to the wetland?
Another 10 feet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 40 feet.
So this house was built in 1956,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Where are the wetlands on this plan?
See the tree line? Right on the other side. Yep, that's the Stevens.
Wetlands over here?
That's the trustees of reservations property where the boardwalk is.
Yep.
It's all wetland. This lot is literally flat, it slopes down. They have a fence along their property line, and right on the other side of the fence is the
Now, this
BVW.
blue line here, what's that line?
That's the property line.
This is the property line?
Correct.
The fence is not the property line?
No. The fence is within the property line. Again, those property lines overlaid on area.
What's what?
Yeah.
The wetlands are over here. It appears to me, from looking at this plan, it's the only plan I've got before me that shows the property and where things are. There appears to be room over here
Right.
in which to put a generator, put gas tanks, and still be hidden from the pool and what have you, 'cause the shrubbery around it.
I'm not even go so far as to say that that's the case,
Well,
because, I mean, there seems to be room, but, I mean,
there appears to be.
it's got to be a certain distance off the building, it's got to has to have the ability to breathe, and you know, for cooling, has to exhaust, tanks have to be a certain distance off buildings, there's
Well,
a
I
whole
mean,
bunch of other things.
Given the location of the tank relative to the building now, not the tank, but the
Generator?
generator and stuff like that, it seems to me that you could put it down in here somewhere. And I don't know how far the gas tanks have to be away from any structure. I've seen them right up against the side of a house, so.
They need to be 10 feet from the generator, 10 feet from any source of ignition.
Well, you know, you got a fence there to hide them, and you also have access to them from the street, from the driveway, so they can come in and refill them easily without having to move the tank to be refilled. There appears to be that there, but without an accurate plan describing where everything falls, it's difficult to make a decision or a determination on any alternatives that you may present, so you need a more accurate plan than what you present. Like, so what in my opinion, you do.
So what I'm getting from the commission, they don't like where it is. You have to file again for when's the gas company supposed to come, let him know?
That I don't know.
Well, I would suggest continue.
Well, I'd just like to give him a chance to present an analysis.
that's what I'm saying.
And to tell us if that location has to be the location, we need an alternatives analysis that is more specific than, you need to maybe get some help with.
Well, that's what I was saying, to continue to the next meeting with an alternatives analysis, and by then, maybe Mike will decide if he's gonna have propane or gas, and put it on this application, so he only has to file once. So it'll be the generator location and where the gas, and the tank location, or the gas, so he doesn't have to file twice and pay twice the fee.
Okay.
So I would, and if you can't make it for the next meeting, we do it the meeting after. I mean, it's not a big deal for you to move it either.
So this is after the fact, that how did this come to be, when the permit eventually came through?
Right, we went out there and
So
it
there's
was
no
there.
enforcement order or anything out there yet?
No.
All right. So we have time to do that?
It doesn't need
No, no,
Right.
it's time to do that.
Are you comfortable continuing to the next meeting?
Sure.
That would be July
25th.
25.
25. Motion to continue.
So,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So you know what they're looking for?
I do.
Turner's analysis, a good one. Not that he doesn't like to look at it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Brian.
Next one is 78 Great Pond Road.
This is my wife, Susan Milona. I'm Nick Milona. We're the homeowners, but the real applicants are our two granddaughters. We're here under their direction to put a pool in.
I like the application already.
So you may recall, this is, these two houses were built not that long ago.
Between those houses.
They were the two, they had the driveways right next to each other, right across from Great Lake Lane,
What address are we?
78 Great Pond Road.
78 Green Thing.
They wait for two houses, we're going back and at this semi,
They're behind that ranch that's on the corner of Stevens Street and Great Pond Road,
All right,
that big, long, white one.
okay.
We purchased the house from Tom Zarico. He lived there for 3 years, I think, 3 or 4 years.
What's the noise gonna say?
So I went out there today. The plan is to put an above-ground pool in above a small retaining wall that's out there. The pool would have a deck on 3 sides because it's right up against the 50-foot. It was staked on the ground today, and I did measure to that stone wall, which you can see is in front of the 25, and, you know, the measurements were on, they were out, so it appears they have the room. If the pool company can do what they say they're gonna do, then it would be out of the 50. The area's already fenced in. You know, the stone wall, the no disturb wall is there, the markers are there. So it would just be a matter of, you know, some erosion control along that line. They are gonna have to excavate out some fill, it's not level. And obviously, they can't build it up because they have that retaining wall, and they're not gonna raise that. So they're gonna have to cut into the hill some, I would guess. So I think erosion control would be necessary. I was also a little concerned about how they would access for the pool, because there's that infiltrator there. And I don't know what machinery they're planning to bring in or how.
Wheelbarrow, the hard way.
Okay.
They were going to walk it down.
I don't install pools for a living, so.
Yeah, no, that was one of their concerns, and what they came up with is just, we're going to have to put the labor into it.
Okay. Joe?
Are you erecting the pool yourself, or are you having
No,
somebody do that?
we're looking to sign a contract
Have
with a
someone do it.
company, but we wanted to go through the process first, and Jennifer helped us navigate this.
So Jen, the grading to level the area up, I mean, are we talking like 6 inches at the deepest cut, or is it greater
I
than
would,
that?
I would guess it's probably a foot.
Right, so they're gonna get into the small bobcats.
Yeah.
So getting around the driveway across that infiltrator will be no problem. They can get
Okay.
across there without any interference. And if it's an above-ground pool, I can't imagine one day to prep the ground and another day to put the thing in and fill it.
I hope.
Yeah, a
We
couple of
hope.
days, so.
I mean, if you look at it, the grades are 78.
Are these, is this the as-built?
This is the as-built, yeah.
Did it? Never mind.
Yeah, it goes 78 to 73, so it's, there's a couple feet to dig down, I'm guessing, 77, 1, see on the fence line? Right up.
78 to 74, so it's actually 4-foot cross grade.
Yeah,
From the
so-
deck out. So they're probably going to fill one area up, cut half that distance into the hill and move it across, just to balance it, so they're not going to be bringing any material in. I guess my point is, they're going to be using a bobcat. They're not bringing anything bigger than that in to do that, and And certainly not going to do it by hand.
They could do it lumpy. They could do it lumpy, they could get 4 or 5 wheel axles, all of them.
At a foot,
Either way, the infiltrator's not a
at a
factor.
2-foot cut, good luck.
Yeah.
No, listen, I've seen it done with,
Well, they used to, back in the old days, everything was manual labor.
get a lot of guys that need to work.
My point is concerned of the infiltrator. I'm not concerned about them getting around it either way,
Okay.
by hand or with the Bobcat. And if they're meeting all the setbacks, I have no other questions. It looks like a good proposal.
Oh, generally, too, the commission requires a non-backwashing filter,
Right.
cartridge style,
Yeah,
so
no
that we would, I forgot about that.
No, you mentioned that before to me, and we'll get whatever filter we have to.
Yeah, we just need to remember to condition it, so
Yeah,
that's me
okay,
remembering.
yeah.
Now,
No questions, I'm all set.
when Jen first told me, we sat and met this morning, I said, there's no way they can put a pool in here, because I'm familiar with the site.
Okay,
And I thought it was gonna be a built-in, because we didn't talk a lot about it. And then she showed me the plan, and I was like, wow, they can put one in there. But then thinking that it was still gonna be an in-ground was bothering the structural integrity of the building, but now when it's above ground, I don't have an issue. The only thing that it's not on here, Jen, is a stockpile. Designated area for stockpile.
Well, I think if we have them run erosion control along that partial retaining wall, then we can just tell them to, I'll condition that all stockpiling would be within those erosion controls.
They're not gonna need a lot, it's gonna be stone dust anyways, whether it's above ground or sand. Okay, I'm good, thank you.
thank you.
Good project.
No questions?
No question.
I have one follow-up.
Go ahead.
The deck, is that included in the footprint we're seeing, and does the...
That's the red dots, that it's on 3 sides. They wouldn't be able to put the deck unless they cantilevered it in some way on the back side, so they're proposing it on
That
3
means your-
sides.
That's acceptable to you, that your deck is going to be against the house, not overhanging to the back, correct?
There's a deck on 3 sides, the lengthwise up against the house,
Okay.
and I think the only way we can have it on that 4th side is if it's a cantilevered
overhung.
beam, or something that can support the air rights, so to speak.
I know just sometimes, the footprint is what people bring in, and as long as you're clear that, your limitations of your deck and what you're showing.
Right, absolutely,
Okay.
sure,
Then I'm also too.
yeah.
Motion?
So it'd be a negative number 3 with a requirement for the cartridge-style filter, erosion controls, and pre- and post-construction.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? You're all set.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the notice of intent, so we have 2 continuances. 242-1728, 500 Rock, continued to 725. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, and that's unanimous. And 242-1735, 1429 Osgood Street, request to continue July 25th.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Okay.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Okay, now we have is 242-1737, annual road maintenance.
So we received the letter from Natural Heritage stating what activities that DPW proposed are exempt, what would require further information or a MISA filing. So I say we just attach that to the order of conditions as a requirement and close an issue.
It's the same maintenance agreement as we've had right along, it's just that the order had expired, that's why we had to renew it.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
I'm sorry, so that was Joe and
Deb,
Deb.
242-1675,
Can't even keep up with the,
amendment request for 40 Hillside Road.
so this was the Busby property, you'll recall, that got divided into 2 lots. This is the house that's constructed. This is the as-built plan for that house, even though it's still an open order, so in addition, thanks, to, in addition to the proposed new patio that I'm sure Greg's going to present to you tonight, there are some minor discrepancies on the as-built. So with that, I'll turn it over.
Good evening. Greg Hoffman from Williams and Sparagus, representing the Wallaces for the amendment request for their property at 40 Hillside Road. This was before the commission back in 2016. The permit's still valid till February of 2019. ND Landscaping is doing some work on the property. They do the maintenance. And the homeowners, now that they've moved in and looked around, they want to make some improvements. We knew there was an open order of conditions, and the big question we had was, did they build what they were supposed to build? And that's going to help us determine what type of filing we're going to need for the improvements that they wanted. They wanted to put a patio in the back. That was the main item, knowing full well that they don't have a lot of room to work with, the way that the 50-foot no-build zone creeps in. So we did an existing topographic mapping to update the existing conditions plan. So what you see is an as-built of what was done. We laid that over the approved plan that Tad Berry did. And there were some minor deviations. I mean, for the most part, the project's in substantial compliance. The driveway's in a slightly different configuration, and the house and deck were shifted over 4 feet to the, I guess it would be the east. But size-wise and setback distance from the resource area, the wall that they built is well outside the 25-foot no disturb. It's in good shape. The site's stable. So with that said, we felt as though an amendment request would be the proper vehicle to hopefully permit the proposed paver patio. It was proposed to be, or approved to be, just a grass slope that was pretty steep, I think 3 to 1. So now they're proposing a small stairway and that half-circle patio that you see just below the deck. Because of the grade change, we do have to construct a small gravity block retaining wall, but at its highest, it would be 3.5 feet. Then it would just kind of taper into the existing grade. And the back of the patio on the deck side would be another small type wall that would also be used as a sitting wall. They also want to put some plantings in. They had approval to do lawn up to the wall along the 25-foot no disturb. They want to enhance that area with some landscape plantings. So I've colored that in a different green around the patio and all along the 25-foot no disturb and up around towards Hillside. All within the approved limit of work that the commission previously approved. And then the third item was, this past winter, a lot of people lost trees. We had some ice storms, some heavy snowfall, and around the pond, you can see a survey is located, I think, 4 or 5 trees that fell over into the pond. The root balls are all sticking up. Typically, trees that fall in the wetlands, most commissions want to keep them there. This is a little different. I think it would benefit not just the clients, but to get those trees out of the pond. And the way that they're proposing to do that is to saw cut them, remove them using hand tools, and then attempt to stand up what's left of the root balls using a winch. It's a lot of work. They realize that. They've talked to a tree guy that's willing to do it. But just thinking realistically, there will be the need to move back and forth from the pond out to the street. So we anticipate a small path of disturbance for the tree removal effort, and what we're proposing to do is install erosion controls if applicable, and also to stabilize any alteration within the buffer zone with the seed mix. They won't be cutting down trees and shrubs to do this removal. And if that's something the commission doesn't want to even entertain, they don't want that to hold up the rest of the project. They've made that clear to me, but it is something that they'd like to do.
Very good presentation. I have no problem with the project proper. I have mixed emotions on the tree cleanup effort. Not so much with root balls, because typically you can be very careful, but when you cut it, it's going to fall right back down, and usually it's everything you do to keep the saw from binding up and getting killed. So so I think the root balls are gonna just drop on their own, not winching anything, for the most part. I hate to say it, I don't know what the habitat, if there is any habitat in that pond.
There is.
I don't know what we get by leaving there, I don't know what we get by taking them out.
They had maintained it previously, so we had made clear
Dug?
during the, yeah, it was a dug pond, but you had made clear during the application process for the houses that you were happy with them maintaining a path to the pond, but that you didn't want them maintaining the pond. I did see some of these when I was out there doing the initial site visit. You know, I guess we didn't review each one, so I would, if you do approve it, maybe we could do a site visit. Maybe it makes sense to leave some of the snags out there. I would say, I remember the one that was far out in the pond and had pulled up a big root mass. It's like pulled up the bank. So, you know, some of them, there might be benefit to putting it back down, or at least cutting it off and putting it back down. Sometimes I know we've let people chop things up and then leave it in the wetland. I don't know what's acceptable to them and what's not, but.
I mean, I'd be lying if I said their main goal wasn't to have it more aesthetically pleasing to look out the pond without 4 or 5 trees lying down. I know this commission doesn't care about aesthetics, but that's the main goal, is to get them out of there for that reason.
If there was a brook, the beavers would take care of them.
Well, you know, I'm usually pretty strict on this stuff, but there's a lot of value to snags in location of bank, in stream areas. The snags are quickly populated by just about every critter that flies or lives around a pond or a stream. I don't have any objection with looking at each tree individually and seeing if there's a way to do it without causing any trouble. You know, I understand the challenge, but I'm in favor of habitat for wildlife, and this is a chance to create some habitat that's not there, so I don't have a problem looking at it further and considering it.
So the condition along those lines would be to grant permission, but only after first obtaining a review during pre-construction or prior to doing the work, by.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to review each one and kind of look at it from the habitat aspect, if there's anything to be gained by perhaps leaving some things
I mean,
behind.
You can tell, you can tell if we went out there and studied it, it would be fairly obvious. Greg could pick it up as easily as.
Right, maybe we can come to some medium where it's aesthetically pleasing, but also perhaps leaving some habitat.
If it makes sense.
I'm not thinking of aesthetics at all. I'm just thinking that there's values in the snags around these areas. You know, I've got standing snags all up and down my property, and they're all occupied.
Yeah, I think, again, this was a very strange area. There were some like ornamental trees and things.
It's almost like an arboretum.
Yeah, the way that it was done, so,
Yeah.
but I'd be happy to look at them individually, see what's, and if there's any disagreement, maybe then I'd bring those back to you and we could talk about it further.
We already know from the original permit process that the pond is active with fish life.
Oh, yeah.
They brought in different species of fish. So
Yeah, she had done, Mary
during the
Rimmer did an
original
inventory.
process, whoever it was that represented the applicant had set fish traps and brought in different photographs. We already know it's an active pond, so it wouldn't be, I don't think it'd be the worst thing to look at the value of the snags at all.
Okay, the project is shown, it's fine. I have a problem with the removing or stabilizing or whatever you want the trees in the pond. We have denied people cutting of trees or stumping of trees in the wetlands. And as you said, Greg, aesthetics is not one of my favorite, or financial gain is not one of my favorite things either. Myself, I think they should just stay where they are. If Mother Nature knocked them down, Mother Nature should leave them there. So, that's my personal.
You sound like my grandfather. He didn't like shoveling snow. So he said it'll melt eventually.
I don't like shoveling either. Sean? Oh, Deb, I'm sorry. I thought you just nodded, you were all
No,
set.
No.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not.
Okay,
I'm not.
fire
Thank
away.
you- Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
Sorry.
I agree with Mr. Manzig and his assessment, and I think that it should be looked at tree by tree.
About the project.
Oh, I like the project. I think it's wonderful.
Just like you.
Are you all set?
I'm all set.
Sean?
I defer to
I
Sean.
agree with Mr. Napoli. But just because of precedent
Just because to be
purposes.
difficult.
No, because, you know, he said, a lot of applicants come in front of us looking to do things in and around a wetland. Unless somebody can tell me what advantage is going to come from removing those items. Is there any ecological advantage that comes?
Aesthetics.
No, ecological.
I mean, again,
wrong
when you're talking about trees down in larger streams, or let's say along the lake, you're talking about large areas too. So like, if all the trees fall into the pond, you know, I'd say there's some habitat value lost in the open water of the pond. This isn't a very big pond. I don't.
It's going to choke it out. It's not a-
Right, so I do recall that looking in there, especially when the leaves weren't yet on the trees, it didn't look great. But that's why I think it makes sense to go look at it, see if there's any bank damage. I mean, there might be, you know, seeing a tree down in an area that's BVW, maybe there's no problem with that. Maybe, you know, one of the trees does provide some shade and fish habitat underneath it. But I'm guessing a lot of things down around a very small pond might not, you know, be as advantageous as it sounds in a much larger system.
They are taking up a lot of space in the area. I didn't realize they were fishing there. You know, there were large trees that came down.
Yeah.
I think it was, I think that the environmental scientist that did it was Mary River.
It was Mary, yeah.
And she set fish traps and brought in photos of all the different species she trapped. We know it's an active pond.
And, you know, maybe it makes sense to leave 50% of the tree. Limb them up, take some of the brush off, keep the logs.
Yeah, that's what but I think it makes sense, as you were saying, to look at it and, yeah.
Needs to be assessed.
Are you all set, Sean?
Are there any waivers requested for this whatsoever?
No, I had just mentioned to Greg, I didn't know whether the work that gets close to the 25, you'd want to see native plantings. I mean, usually ornamentals are fine up and around the house, but when things get closer to the no disturb zone and that sort of thing, we've often required natives of others. I'm just not sure.
But the retaining wall that's going around the patio area is outside the 50, is that right?
It's
We gave
outside the
ourselves
50, yeah.
0.4 feet.
0.4,
of wiggle
excellent.
room.
Right.
And
Either side.
below it, but what's below, is it going to be patio?
Planting bed
Plantings
below.
So
Yeah.
that's what's shown on here is planting.
Yeah,
In
that
gray
other
area.
green is the planting.
Proposed, yeah, I see it, okay. I don't have anything else.
Stop it all, the shoebox. Doug?
It's tight.
Well, as far as the trees in the pond go, we'll look at them one by one, make a determination as to what makes sense to remove and what doesn't. Go that way.
So we gotta continue.
Do we need to continue that? Yeah, doesn't he want to get this done and didn't want
Yeah.
this part to hold up your filing? right?
No, we don't need to continue. I think the conversation is going to prove the project, and one of the conditions will be speaking specifically
To
the
reviewing
action to
those
follow
trees.
on the trees.
And I'll write it such that if we need to come back and have a discussion, that can just be a discussion to approve the
But we're not
trees.
approving the trees yet.
No, we're giving
Correct.
the
We're-
applicant a chance to present.
An amendment's going to allow me to write up new conditions for the order, to amend the order. So we'll include the new work, we'll reference the new plan. You know, we'll probably put some kind of, you know, pre-construction condition when the erosion controls are in and they stake out the patio, that sort of thing. And then we can put in another condition that says the trees will be reviewed and, you know, if necessary, brought back to the commission.
In the interim, if the applicant's representative wanted to, we could submit some type of an analysis to support his position.
Right, or we could just go out there and I can report back.
We could do that too. We could do that too.
Yep,
it doesn't hurt to,
Well, I want us, if
let the science drive the project.
Right.
we're going to consider this, I want.
You want something back?
I want, yeah, I want access, I want to see where the access is, how it's going to be done, so that, because.
But what I'm saying is,
With-
we're going to condition that in the amended order. We're not going to hold up the amended order. We're
No, no,
gonna-
not this one, no. I'm talking about the taking, once you mark the trees, how they're going to get to them.
Right, but what I'm saying is, Greg can come back to present that, but I'll make that a condition of the new order.
Right,
Okay.
okay. Motion?
Can I make a-
Oh, I'm sorry, about it, go ahead. I'm sorry. Would you
If
please come up to the
If
podium,
you don't
please?
mind, if you just come up to the podium or the table, either one, and just give us your name and address, and then you'll be on record, and we'll satisfy the open meeting law.
My name's Mark Fisher. I'm a resident at 65 Hillside Road. I just had a couple questions. As far as the proposed site of the patio, can you tell me what the condition is of that site right now? Is that just lawn or hill or
It's lawn.
it's lawn? Is the commission at all concerned about how much of a lot is changed from a porous surface into a non-porous surface? The reason I ask is since this house was constructed, the groundwater situation at my property has substantially been altered, and there's nothing I can do about that now, but I just didn't know if, and I presume that's more from the basement than anything above the surface, but I don't know if that's within the purvey of the commission or whether you're just making sure it's not interfering with wetlands.
So from a permitting perspective, a single-family residential lot is exempt from any detailed stormwater management analysis, with regards to runoff. Groundwater alterations are almost seldom fall under the Wetlands Protection Act unless they're getting waivers, that they're getting close to an area, and that we feel that it impacts the wildlife habitat, unfortunately, not the neighbors. So the science is typically driven that supports those regulations, that the smaller lots don't typically change things in a big way. We typically, though, we do require what I call best management practices, catch roof runoff, try to get as much into the ground as you can. Adding a little bit more patio area falls into that same vein. Whatever's built on this lot is exempt from true stormwater management. So I'm not concerned with that. More practically speaking, is Hillside Road is notorious for a fluctuating groundwater table. In many areas, groundwater is inches below the surface most of the year,
I've lived there for 20 years now.
and it's changed.
Oh, radically, yes.
So you're across the street from here, and you back into Royal Crest, or you're not quite that far down?
Royal Crest is in the back, it's way.
Way in back.
There's a huge field that's one of this is how separating me from Royal Crest.
Okay.
No, I've been there 20 years, and this is a big change.
Looking at this plan, they're porous pavers, correct?
Well, people come in here and say that water goes through pavers. They do, but they're almost as impervious as pavement.
It's pavement.
You do get some infiltration, but in this case, we're cutting out a chunk of the lawn around the patio. There's a sitting wall that contains the patio that will have scuppers. So during storm events, you'll get some sheet flow off that patio that will fall down into that planting bed. There will be some infiltration in the planting bed, where right now everything's just kind of sheet flowing down across the lawn towards the resource area. I think this drains towards Chestnut, if I'm not mistaken.
It drains to that swale behind the house.
Right. So I don't think we're pushing any water across the street.
I agree. I
Runs
agree.
around the back of Chestnut, and then those lots that cross, was it Blueberry Lane, heading that way to Mosquito Brook?
The same amount of water is falling on this lot. We are changing some of the surface from what's lawn to patio, but as far as getting to the resource areas quicker, I'm not sure it actually would. It might get there actually slower as a result of this project.
And as far as the removal of the trees, you had mentioned
Path between the pond and Hillside Road, I don't know if that's going to create a new conduit. I realize it's like temporary.
Well, we haven't seen the access, what he's gonna do.
No, the access would be over their lot, not out to Hillside
Yeah,
Road.
it would be, actually, they have a path.
They have a path.
There is a path on the plan that was approved when we approved the house.
Right.
and that would likely be the access point they would use now. I don't,
I thought he had mentioned going out to Hillside Road
Yeah,
to
it-
extract the trees.
If it made more sense to do so, we wanted the ability to propose that, with the understanding that if anything is altered within the resource area, within the buffer zone of that resource area, that we'd have to restore it. But there's no intent to remove any additional shrubs or trees as a result of that path. It would just be whatever makes the most sense to get those materials out of the woods with the
Yeah.
least amount of damage.
It's pretty heavily vegetated between the pond and the road.
So more than likely, we'd be using the existing path that was previously approved.
We haven't even got into any of that kind
We
of
haven't got-
detail yet,
we're
but
not even
you know,
close.
in my own mind, I'm envisioning this thing as, you know, once the frost gets in and, you know, get a real good hard frost cover, you know, that's when you're gonna even consider taking these things out and minimize the ground disturbance and, you know, get in with a couple of ATVs.
these are small trees.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
12 inch.
Get in with an ATV,
16
you know,
inch.
cut them at the length
These
and
can
rip them
be-
out.
Honestly, guys, these trees can be cut by hand with a handsaw. You don't even need a chainsaw for these. These are small trees. This is not like a major 300-foot pine that's,
It's not gonna skin them out.
seriously. These things are coming out in small pieces. They're gonna be done by hand. This is, I'm sorry, but these are not, if the sizes are correct on the plan, this is not a big deal.
Hand tools and a winch, that's what
Oh,
they're.
That's what I'm saying, frozen ground, drag them out across frozen ground, you're not disturbing anything. It's easy as can be.
Take them out in
We
pieces, you don't
haven't,
even
we
need it.
haven't heard the proposal yet,
Yeah.
so let's see what they.
I'm trying to address the buttons
No, no.
concern. I'm not so
But
inclined to
you're
give any
across the
sort of
street.
path.
Yeah.
Not giving any path out to Hillside, I don't see that.
You're across the street.
Farther towards 114.
So if you were looking at Mrs. Howe's house, are you to the left?
Here,
Facing her
I
house?
can show you.
To the left.
To the left, yeah, so you're actually not just across the street, but you're a pretty good distance away.
He's the blue dot across from the pond.
No, I know the
If you
problem.
look-
Believe it or not, I used to cut Mrs. Howe's field, so I know the area pretty well.
I just wanted to get those questions answered.
And it is pretty wet over there, because when I used to mow that field, if I didn't wait till late July or early August, I'd sink halfway to China. So that's a very wet side over there. There's, yeah, a lot of,
Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Okay, so we know what direction we're going. Okay. So we need a motion to approve the amendment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Thanks, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
So with the approval of the amendment, Jen, the conditions we spoke of, do we vote to deliberate those separately, or are you just going to include them?
I generally just update them to include the things that have changed, and I guess if you want to see the language of the, okay.
Next one is 242-1691, request to continue to 7/25.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is 242-683. ECOC request for 174 Whalen Circle.
This is a non-jurisdictional lot in the Foxwood subdivision. I recommend issuing the partial certificate of
questions?
compliance.
Motion?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is Half Mile Hill agricultural license.
Do we want to table that to the end and deal with the people?
Enforcement?
Might be a better thing to do.
Next one's enforcement order, 46 Hollow Tree Road, Lane. That's you. That's you.
Good evening.
So Mr. Lally was required to file the RDA, so he's pulled that together. It will be on the next meeting, so they shouldn't, we can discuss aspects of that if he has questions, but I figured you would want to focus on the restoration plan, which you should have copies of in front of you.
So in efforts to save money, I got some advice from Hancock Associates on kind of how to go about it, and then I did it myself. Given that nothing was being built and we're just, the main goal here is just to replant grass and clean up, I kept it as simple as possible. you can read it and ask me if you have any questions, or if there's anything missing, I can add to it.
So I talked briefly with Mr. Lally about the requirements when he last discussed this with us, and I guess there was some discussion about not needing a survey plan of the property. And my concern about that is we have nothing with a delineation on it, or nothing with the limits of clearing, so it's going to leave a lot of discretion as to where and what and how.
Yes, so I did have Hancock come out to do the delineation, and they marked a series, they marked on my entire property line from front to back, which would be the kind of northwest corner down to the brick wall that represents the kind of the southern border of the property. So what the plan was, is what I think I spoke about it last time as well, is essentially to go, it makes kind of a zigzag line along that, on this is the southwestern portion of the long ways line there. It makes sort of a zigzag line, is to take the marker for the delineation that reaches furthest out into the yard, go 25 feet from there, and then just do a straight line along the property. So at the absolute closest to the wetland, I'll be outside, it'll be 25 feet, the actual buffer zone. In some cases, it would be up to 40, but I'll just create a straight line with it. And then from there, we'll do monumentation along that line. When we spoke 2 months ago, or whenever the last time I was here was, you said some of the options were a rock wall, there was something about posts, and there were a couple of other things mentioned. And when I spoke to Hancock, they said the posts with the markers on them, there was something about an orange disc or something like that. They said that could be a good idea. And that was what I included in the plan.
And the work is within priority habitat. Have you heard anything from MISA?
So there was an issue with the MISA file. That was my fault, and I need to basically refile. So that, I did talk to the woman at that office at the state, and she said once I get it to her, and I can probably have it to her by Thursday or Friday this week, she said they can turn it around fairly quick. They need up to 30 days, but she said a week or two.
She's talking about Wetlands Protection Act review. Does she, so you have already, did she know you've already done the work?
Yes, when I spoke to her on the phone, yeah.
Okay. I'm hesitant to do anything without knowing what they want. And then the problem, I also, with the lack of the wetland delineation, I thought, we don't know, but I thought someone had, they will tell us, I thought they had said that stream, I calculated the stream to be perennial, whereas you had said something about it being intermittent.
Right.
So riverfront or not riverfront, there's also bordering land subject to flooding.
Right, on all the maps that were found, whether it was from the state or...
It's not done by maps, though. It's done,
Right.
it's a calculation.
And when Hancock came out, that was what they said. They said it is intermittent.
But again, we have no delineation report, no nothing.
Yeah, this is an enforcement update, right? There's a filing that's... The question is what filing comes before us, when it comes before us, correct, Jen?
Well, he's put together the RDA, so I assume it's coming soon. I think his plan was to file it for the next meeting, which the deadline's tomorrow at noon.
But I'm confused. When did we waive the survey?
We didn't, it was discussed at the last meeting. I think you told him to put together a plan. We've seen some pretty good, plans put together for restoration, but this doesn't give me enough information, in my opinion, with or without the survey. If you have a plot plan, sometimes it's possible to do a really good plan, but without any kind of a survey of the house or anything,
I don't want to break the bank on paper as opposed to getting the restoration, but on the same token, we need to memorialize the record of what the heck happened out here and what's permitted and not permitted for the future. And right now, we just don't have that, and regardless of what we accept for this type of data, it just doesn't get us there.
We don't have a
But-
report from Hancock either.
But it sounds like Hancock delineated it, so they left monuments behind. Just hasn't been surveyed yet, hasn't been physically,
No, but they haven't given us a report or stream calcs or anything. We don't have anything from them.
So I need to get that from them as well.
Something, yeah.
There needs to be a report from them on their delineation and the stream calculations.
Okay.
I'm trying to find the floodplain on the map here, just to see. I should have pulled up the FEMA. Yeah, so if you look at, this is the FEMA floodplain.
the yellow area.
Hold on
No,
now.
Putting it up. That's 500 or 100 year.
100. That's the A zone.
So the dark feature going bottom right to top left is, that's the brook?
That's the brook, which, when I ran stream stats on it, I came
That's
up with
not intermittent. That-
Yeah, exactly.
That's not intermittent if it's 100, yeah, floodplain.
There's also a lot of BLSF there too, so.
No, but that's what I mean. You wouldn't have BLSF with an intermittent stream
No,
of
no,
that
I
size.
get that, but the setback, it might be whether it's riparian zone or whether it's wetland BLSF calcs. I think we're gonna end up with the same number, or the same distance somewhere, I think.
But a no disturbance zone and a no build zones don't differ. It's just where's the limit of that line.
Well, clearing and grading within BLSF would be a whole different story.
Right.
Just because if you're grading it out to be a lawn and you're in BLSF, you can't be changing any of those grades.
Grades,
But
right.
also for his restoration, we need all that. We need to know the limits for the restoration.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Without a plan, I mean, we had this for 25 Hollow Tree. He did the plan. It actually, to his benefit, wound up being that much of the clearing wasn't on his property, and it allowed him to create a restoration area where it was on his property, but we wouldn't have been able to tell that without the plan.
Was that also Hancock? No, that was.
Greg did that.
Yeah.
All right, so we have to get this,
And we are also requiring the same of 478 Winter Street.
that enforcement act change. So we have to get this, some direction, make a list, what he needs.
So now I need to get a delineation report from Hancock and start there.
Well, let's say it differently, because I think what we would normally need, and it's still we still believe this in RDA,
Well, that's the advice you had given him before, but,
Right.
yep.
as long as it's, if the disturbance is what was cut, and at this point it's restoration beyond that.
Well, the restoration's separate, I'm sorry. The restoration would be under the EO. What he wants to keep is cleared yard and continue to stump would be the RDA.
We need to know where the line is.
We need to know where the line
We need
is.
to know
So
where
what
the
we need
line
is, we
is.
need a surveyed plan that depicts the property, at least the work area, and can tie it back to something we can recognize, like the house or a property line. And we need to show, and we know what it means, to show all the resource areas, whether they're BVW or BLSF. That'll define what the brook is. They will, an engineer has to define that. And given the resource area, lay into that what Natural Heritage says with regards to priority habitat, because they will chime in on what activities are allowed and not allowed, given the resource areas and given the habitat. And then collectively, we take all those documents, and that's the record that I was talking about earlier. That's what we have, and it gives us the ability to reach that decision. So as much as it's generating some more paperwork, and not just simply doing labor and getting grass seed planted, unfortunately, that's what we need to do to get the permits in place to do this work. Now, it's not a full-blown notice of intent, which required a lot more work than that, a lot more data gathering. So it may seem onerous, but it's actually a relaxed standard than what we would otherwise require. If Hancock has already been out there and did the resource flagging, from a BBW perspective. I'm not saying who to hire, but it seems to me that, they are a house that does all of those things in a single location. Probably don't want to change horses. You want to stay with them. But they know exactly, if you have the conversation with them, they know exactly what it is that needs to be prepared for other commissions and this commission. So that's the best guidance I can give you.
You have any questions?
I don't have any questions. My only comment would be, I would like Jennifer to give this gentleman a punch list of what he has to do. I would just like.
Well, I think Joe just provided the punch list. I don't want to change the punch list, because that was the hard part of the last meeting, was I think we got, like,
Do it in writing.
You-
Do it in writing so that
Okay.
it's clear.
So-
Because, there's interpretation taking place. Just put it in writing, what we need.
Deb?
No question. But Jen, you're going to require a survey. Is that-
no, you're going to require a survey. I don't require anything.
No,
I just work here.
Yeah, I meant there will be a survey
You don't disagree
provided.
with it.
I don't disagree.
There will
I
be-
just, I don't want, the problem is, I don't want the restoration to be all sort of
Right.
subjective. Did we restore where we needed to restore? How far off? Flags go missing. If we don't have a plan, it's very hard to do something like this.
I honestly thought that was what was discussed at the last time you were here. I thought that.
I think there was some leeway in that if he could produce something that would get us to where we need to be. Like if you had a former delineation of this property with your house on it and all that, and we could somehow put the new flags on that plan and create something, that would be one thing.
Do we know we don't? I mean,
I've looked, I don't have any filings
We
for
don't know what the
the,
house is built on.
yeah, we do, but we just don't have a filing on it.
Nothing on
Because,
file.
again, there are
Well, what they were
filings.
doing was
We
filing
have a
away.
filing on the neighboring house on Hollow Tree Lane. See the one that's closer to that brook? We have a file on that house. We don't have one on this one.
The work that was done at that time was far enough away. to
Yeah,
be
because
required.
they probably just didn't clear anything within,
No, they didn't.
right.
Sean?
So Jen, can you give me a little background on what was cleared?
So he has that photo. I'll go back to it. Sorry. I don't know. My casting skills are, oh, we don't want to get into that.
We don't want to do that.
No.
Well, no, the circumstances are simple.
Well, they weren't really.
He engaged a timber contractor to clear the trees off his lot with the intention of converting it from forest to lawn. He wanted to have a yard. And he engaged a contractor who gave him assurances that he knew what he was doing, he knew where wetlands were, and that everything was on the up and up, and that he was gonna do a good job for him.
Rang a few other doorbells.
The guy kept going.
And there was some neighborhood collaboration where the timber cutter knocked on some other doors, and there were some people, and then eventually, there was a complaint filed. And that was the genesis of how we got here. But he engaged a guy, I think he engaged in a good faith, and I think that the guy just told him he was all set, and he wasn't all set. And he's attended every meeting, and he's, trying to make it right, so.
He and his neighbors, I mean, they're all trying to do the right thing.
But I mean, we went to his house, we took a site visit, he,
Yeah, no, just a little back.
that's where we.
Is that all accurate?
Yes.
And if this guy ever steps foot in Massachusetts ever again, I'll be shocked.
Oh, I think
He won't answer my calls.
It's very unlikely, although I give that guy credit too for driving 3 hours last time to come here, but it's very unlikely he'll come back. It wasn't worth it to him.
Well, the reason why I was asking some of the background was because I know that there was an issue as to whether or not there was a request for a stone wall, and then there was a request that it be changed to markers. Is that what I?
Again, I mentioned that to Mr. Lally, that in these sorts of cases, a stone wall demarcation is probably going to be required. Generally, you allow posts and markers pretty much only on super old lots that already have a limit of clearing that doesn't really correspond to our 25-foot no disturb zone. I'm just thinking of 332 Hillside, where part of his lawn was actually wetland. There we've done posts and markers because we're sort of taking something back and he needs to know where that line is. But generally, on anything new clearing, you've required a stone wall.
I don't
have to extend the enforcement order, correct?
Yes.
So when we left the last meeting, one of my questions was specifically about the survey because,
Yeah.
like a quote on how much it cost. And we talked about how to, not doing one essentially. Or are we saying here you're absolutely requiring one?
Well, I think we discussed at the last meeting that if you could produce some kind of good plan, the problem is this wouldn't be that. Like this, you can't put the delineation on this plan, you don't have a plot plan, a site plan showing your property boundaries, showing, something that we could measure off your house and put a wetland line on. There's nothing. We don't.
Right.
So people have been able to produce very good plans for RDAs off of some former plan. Like the pool that was before them earlier tonight. They have an as-built plan that shows all of the existing conditions, and all they had to do on it was draw a pool. So
Well, because there's no previous existing.
plan like that, this is almost an impossible
We're not able to
task.
find
Now,
it.
had such a plan existed, the survey.
We could use
It's
that.
possible we could have done
Yeah,
something
you
with it.
just pick up the wetland line and every.
We're not
resource area line
talking
and
your
put it
sort
on.
of mortgage plot plan. We're talking something a lot more detailed.
A
So-
boundary line survey. It would have to be a boundary line survey. That's what we would have been looking for. Because a boundary line survey will tell us the limits of your property, and then the wetland survey will show us where the flags are, the delineation. The delineation will be put onto the boundary line survey, and we can see both lines. We can see your property line, and we can see the wetland line, we can see the stream. We know what the setbacks are. We know how best to help you restore the property.
Okay.
Who were you working with at Hancock?
Ann McMenamin?
All right, so if you have a conversation with her on the telephone, along the lines we're having now, they could absolutely make clear to you what's needed, and then give you an indication of, what's
You
gonna take.
you can also
to
go
get you there.
elsewhere for the survey.
Yeah.
She did put, the flags are out there, so anybody can survey them. If you can, if the cost is the issue, I would advise you to get more.
Yeah, and RPLS can do it.
And just to correct Al, because I want to make sure it's crystal clear that it's not just a boundary survey at all that we're looking for. I mean, the boundary and the limits of the property are one thing, but in reality, is we're looking at existing conditions of what's out there. We need to pick up some topography, need to be picking up features that are out there.
All right, so that's, I guess,
Yeah.
that's why I asked.
Well, that's why I said the mortgage plot plan wasn't going to do it.
Right,
That'll
right.
show your boundaries,
No,
but
but
that's,
Joe's
yeah.
point is well taken, so
gotcha.
put it down and we'll get it all done at once,
So how much do you want to continue the enforcement order for?
Sounds like
that?
probably a month is realistic.
I don't know how long the process takes.
And I'm
Yeah.
sure hasn't been following this too closely. There's been great, good faith exhibited by
Yes.
all parties concerned, except for the guy who did it, which is the
From your
lumberjack.
perspective, yes.
Continuing month is fine by me.
All right.
Recognizing it's gonna take maybe more than
We've
that.
received great candor from this gentleman.
Yes, yes. I was at one of the hearings where one of the abutters, his abutters were here, and I cut the background
So
to the
you-
genesis of it all, but it wasn't totally put out in front of me.
So, up to this point, Mr. Lally's been very cooperative and very honest with us, and
Yep.
so we've been trying to help him as best we can.
So we're going to, what do you want to continue in a month? Will a month work for you?
I guess. I did have one other question,
Yeah.
and it was an interpretation thing on the checklist. It said with the work to be done, something about the certified abutter list and sending certified letters to.
No, that's fair.
Right.
There was, I had a couple people read it, I wasn't sure. If we're not doing any actual work, nothing's being built, do I still need to notify the abutters, or does the simple act of the cleanup and the stumping, do I still need to notify abutters for that?
And that's the activity.
The
Okay.
abutter notification is a form, basically, you'll make copies of that will, when you do get your filing in, we'll create for you, and you mail it, you don't have to, I know he abuts Meeting House Commons, which is all the condos out there.
Oh,
Really?
Notify just the association.
300 feet?
We could notify, that's up to you, because
It
this,
actually touches there, I know which one you're talking about, it actually touches on.
so
if you go
notify
to-
the
yeah.
association. It's up to you. This is a local bylaw requirement, only RDAs under the state don't
Don't
require butter
require.
notification, so it's up to you.
Actually, if you go to the plot plan, if it's subjective, we go down, I think it's 2. Page 2. No.
Yeah, you can see Meeting House Commons down there.
So you can see the clearing was
The-
kind of where the 0 starts, in the 0013, going up and to the right. Meeting House Commons, I don't abut until the bottom left.
Right, but the bylaw
Within
is 300 feet
feet,
of the
so
property line.
They were direct
300 feet
about
of
it.
property line.
They were direct
Okay.
about it.
I was going to say, it's probably 300 feet from where the clearing was, but not the, obviously not the property line.
They're on the other side of the brook.
The second August meeting would be, the first August meeting would be August 8th, or the second one would be August 22nd.
Yeah, Is there any way,
I can tell.
is there any way we can get around the abutter list?
Yeah, we can waive it.
Well, no, I think he still needs to, we could waive the abutter list, or, I think most of the problem goes away of
Notify the association.
association
Single mailing.
instead of the
Yeah.
hundreds of people who live there.
Okay.
That's better than waiving. At least we notify the body, and they can notify the members.
I just, don't want this guy getting killed on.
Well, no, a butter notification, we use the certificates of mailing, so it isn't like he has to mail green cards to everybody. So it's a much simpler process than,
Okay.
so August 8th or August 22nd, and Al was going to say
I can
something.
tell you I will not be here on August 8th.
I won't either.
So, okay, so we don't even have, we barely have a
22nd
quorum.
is-
I don't think I'm going to, August, I don't know.
8th.
August 8th.
I don't know if I'm going to be back in.
I'll poll you all individually later, so August 22nd.
Yeah.
Well, I know for sure that the 8th is out for me, so.
And Doug
For
just said
certain.
it is,
For
and
certain.
Joe.
I'm not coming
Yeah,
back
I
in
think I'm going to be in Alaska.
So 22nd might be a better day.
Yeah, I'm going to Alaska.
At least we know now, you don't have to wonder about it.
Yeah, I will be canceling the August 8th meeting shortly.
That's good.
Okay, is there, you guys, August 22nd is the continuation date.
All right, Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
I was going to make the motion, but, all right.
Well, if you have, when you have questions, I know you can just communicate with Jen and ask her,
Okay.
rather than just
Well, he and I were discussing today, actually, because he just got everything to me today, but it also sort of, having been 2 weeks, I kind of pulled up the meeting minutes, and it wasn't really, the discussion was kind of all over the place, so honestly, I wasn't the source of the answers, but you are. Thank you. I will write that up, though, and send it to you in writing, so you have it.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Next one
Have a
is
good evening.
Thank you.
Force North on 440.
I'm going to drink a water. 440 Green.
So,
You know what that is?
I heard of it, yeah.
on this one, we do have a lot more detail.
We're pretty much done here, right?
I think the gentleman's here.
Yes.
It's all about
So this would be an example of a non-survey plan that is appropriate to answer the questions of the enforcement order.
Hi, folks, I'm Phil Cobb from Wetland Consulting Services. I met with you guys last January because the landscaper had cleared some on an area next to the lake, Lake Chickwich. At that time, I produced a preliminary restoration plan, which basically involved planting outside the forested area. That was a preliminary plan, but because of all the slash that was left behind, the commission decided to have the slash removed, and there were also actually 2 sheds within the cleared area that the commission also wanted to have removed. Probably 2/3 to 3/4 of the slash was removed in early June, along with the 2 sheds, leaving effectively what I call, on the plan, I called it a cleared area. In the photographs, it shows it's mostly devoid of vegetation right now. As a result, I revised the planting plan to focus planting trees and shrubs within that cleared area. And that involved planting, hang on a second here, let's see, a total of six saplings, which would be equal numbers of black birch and gray birch, and 24 shrubs within the cleared area, and 40 ferns, 20 cinnamon fern and 20 royal fern. And in the previous plan that I submitted in January, I had offered or suggested planting some sycamore trees along the tree line just outside, just in the grassy area just beyond the forest line. I still want to keep those sycamore trees because I think they would still be a nice amendment, although I don't think any of us would appreciate them before they really become full of life. So in addition to the planting plan, we also would put in 4 no disturb markers. These would be measured 100 feet out from the wetland that I flagged back in mid to late June. So that would require that a part of the area that's typically mowed all the time would no longer be mowed. So effectively now what we've got is the area's been cleared of most of the brush. The sheds have been removed. We're going to replant the disturbed area. The areas that were previously cut are starting to regenerate. Unfortunately, there's quite a bit of buckthorn amongst the vegetation regrowing, but it's also a mix of river birch. Herbaceous layer is coming in very nicely, as you can see from some of the photos. I would like to delay planting anything until the fall because basically, given the distance from a water swell, ignoring the lake itself, would be quite a distance to water the planted shrubs if we had to do it right now. So I'd like to delay it until the fall when basically the trees and shrubs we would plant would mostly be dormant. And that's my story. So.
Joe? So I apologize, I stepped up before I passed out. But I read along as you were going, and I understand what you're proposing. I'm in complete support of a fall planting schedule, just from a survivability perspective. It's the most optimum time to do that anyway. Invasive species control, is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think
the
these
sequencing
plants
of
are
that,
going
is that something they're doing first before the plantings?
No, they're not doing any invasive species control per se, but I do think they're going to have to keep the planting areas free of invasive species, or they're going to lose the
That's my concern, they're
plantings.
just going to get overrun.
Right. The site is already pretty colonized by invasive species.
So I guess the question is exactly that, the areas that you're going to restore and the new plantings, what do you have in mind to, not you, but what do they have in mind?
Yeah, well, up until now, I really hadn't any plan. However, I did envision that once the area is planted, we'd have to be monitoring it to see if the plant survived, particularly over the winter. So I think at that point, actually during the planting phase, which would be in the fall, we could mow down whatever new invasives would be coming in the disturbed area. And then next spring, or actually probably early summer, to check on the survivorship of what we planted, we could again do another survey to see if the invasives are invading into that area. I imagine, though, it would be a very long-term process to try to keep them up because there's so much buckthorn in there right now.
Well,
So I don't know.
my concern is, the mature trees that were taken down in there, I mean, they, if left to nature, the invasives probably would have just wiped them out anyway. The survivability of the replanting is as great as you do and as closely as they're monitored. I question the ability of any reestablishment of resource, native species.
It was largely rhododendron that was cleared
Okay.
in the understory, because this was some kind of lake cottage situation down
Okay.
there. So what was cleared out was largely the the shrub layer. I mean, the biggest concern was the river birch that were all along the edge of the pond. Unfortunately, at this point in the year, those are all underwater, so we really didn't get to see what kind of regeneration was happening with the river birch.
They were just cut but not stumped, so they were
Right,
going to
so
regenerate.
that was the
Hoping
hope.
they're going to regenerate.
Right.
Well, there weren't any trees cut, it was just a...
Well, except for the river
shrub
birch along the shore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
guess
I mean,
missed
they were,
that
at that point, they were all still sort of shrub to sapling
Okay,
size, though,
okay,
but,
yes, that
No,
I...
there was some good size river birch.
yeah, there were a couple that
there
were
was some
a
good
couple
size.
inches in diameter.
I mean, I wouldn't call them mature, but they were good, well-established
Right.
column. That was the only thing I was concerned about. That would have been my question, is there any way to restore or populate the river birch? The rest of it, I understand, it's a roll of the dice for everything else, but the river birch could stand alone.
If the root mass and the stump is still in, then they will regenerate, probably faster than we think, but when did these cut?
Well, the
last
problem with
fall?
the lake being a controlled outlet situation, it's, you know, if they get a certain amount of, I mean, given the way the summer's going so far, and if it's gonna be dry, they're, you know, the chances are they will get an opportunity to do that. If they remain flooded, then,
They won't shoot suckers.
yeah.
No. Okay, that was my question.
Sean?
No question.
No question. All right, so we have to extend the enforcement order for the plans?
No, we would amend it. I guess, I would also suggest we'll do 1-year monitoring, and then at that point assess, I mean, generally it would be 2-year monitoring, but I'm for releasing this as soon as possible, given that there's gonna, you know, be new, so I think we could assess at 1 year how it looks and determine if further monitoring is needed.
And then annex the report on the planting plan to the record.
Right, so for the EO would require restoration according to the new plan, a new EO, or an amended EO from, we've just been amending them as we go along. To require restoration according to the new plan, work should be complete by October 1st and must be monitored 1 year with the option for 2.
We're going to go into October 1st, let's give them to November 1st.
We don't want him planting on November 1st, because, you know, then the chances that his plants get heaved up and out of the, maybe October 15th would be the latest, I think you'd want.
And we just, yeah.
I like October 15th.
15th, okay.
Oh, Sean does.
Well, obviously, we'll contact you.
When you buy
Yeah,
that house?
that'd be great.
What's that? When you buy that house, you still buy it.
You're going to move in with me.
We can all move in.
You could put the whole commission.
So,
Did you see that on the news yesterday?
Yeah, I did.
I was shocked.
That's what they pay for windows and doors, I won't see in a lifetime.
so you want a motion to
To amend as I
amend
just
as
described.
proposed?
Yep.
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Thank you.
We still
But
have,
we're still,
We got to go back to the
half mile
ag
agricultural
license.
license. You too.
thanks.
I'm gonna leave this up to Al if he has any changes. The only thing, my interpretation is that there has been people that are ignoring the license and haven't been paying or haven't been having communication. If those people don't meet the deadlines, and there's somebody that wants to do it,
Yeah.
then let them do it.
So there's that's part of the discussion, and we can do this fairly quickly, but Jennifer has been managing the dwindling number of farmers that are interested in harvesting hay from our properties that the commission manages, Foster Farm or, Mazarenko or Half Mile Hill, Summit Hill. And the problem that we've had up till this point is there aren't enough interested parties that want to get on the property to take the hay. And we've been basically begging them to get up there and do it, to harvest the hay, to keep the fields open. And so the situation has caused a very relaxed atmosphere, if you will, and we now have some competition. We have a new young man in town that is baling hay and wants to take this hill. And so this is an opportunity to just tighten up the license and, then we can choose, we're going to ask, once we agree upon the license, once we agree upon the document, once this commission agrees upon the document, we're going to ask the interested parties to attend the meeting, make a presentation, and then the commission will decide which one of them gets the job. So tonight, our job is just simply to review the agricultural license and make any recommendations or changes. Then Jen will ask the farmers interested to appear, and we'll see who gives us the best presentation. One of the farmers is located here in town, and one is located in Haverhill.
Are you on the list?
I am not. I cannot be on the list.
I know.
Right.
But I know both of these farmers. They both qualified people. They both know what they're doing. So we have competition, finally. So this is an opportunity to get it, just to tighten it up a little bit. Obviously, we don't want to over-tighten.
No.
So one of the issues with the last farmer was he wanted to till the land, so you'll see number 2, this has been existing, the soils are non-tillable, and given the location, that's not going to be, so the hay crop out here is going to be largely,
Well,
not, and it also needs to be hayed after, we've currently said August 15th, but I've always gone by July 31st as being the end of the.
July 31st is a more realistic date.
Yeah,
And-
so
and
I don't think it needs to be August 15th. I think that part we could relax. But the bobbling population out here, since we've controlled more of the mowing or had more control over the mowing, has flourished to the point where it's a big thing now. So the new person interested in farming this too said, would that ever be relaxed? At this point, I don't think that's a good idea. The hill was protected for ground nesting birds, and now that they're back, I don't think altering that would be a good idea.
Well, no, that's exactly right on point. We wanted to maintain open, that's why we allow mowing of other parcels in town, because we want the open fields to
Right.
stay open and provide habitat. But, yeah, July 31st is an excellent date.
Okay. And then, there is the issue with the maintaining the wooded buffer to the lake. Again, these are all, the only things I changed were, I noted that the date on the mowing I thought could be relaxed somewhat. There's no herbicides or pesticides used without permission of the commission. I know there's been some soil amendments proposed, but I think, again, you would need to review that.
I think the only thing,
This is strictly hay cutting, right?
Right.
Well, they amended with just lime, right?
the lime and/or some type of fertilizer or manure, some type of organic compound. But I just wanted to, when you talk about non-tillable land, I understand that hay, forage crops is non-tillable. However, you have to always leave open the possibility for them to come before us should there be some type of a frost kill or the plants just get wiped out from something. Something happens to wipe the plants out, they have to till to reseed it. And we got to give them the opportunity. We can institute conservation tilling practices where they have to till across the hill instead of straight up and down to prevent runoff from going down. There's ways to do it. We did it at Mazarenko when Mr. Rogers was harvesting corn over there. He was using conservation tillage practices where he was going horizontally across the hill.
Yeah, these licenses were written before I got here, so
Yeah.
you guys put that in.
So I'm just saying, I'm just asking, don't,
Well, it doesn't say that, it doesn't say that it can't, it just says contains non-tillable soils, therefore harvest crops are
no,
prohibited.
I would add just one paragraph somewhere that say, if tilling becomes necessary, it's a separate, it's a separate appearance before the commission to justify the tilling. It's not just part of this license. It's an appearance, a filing, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Because, that at some point it just might be necessary. You
Written
never know.
approval from commission required.
Yeah, the commission should have to review that. I can't imagine we would if they do their job and they fertilize it, they cut it on time and get the hay off it. It's very unlikely the plants will get damaged. It's,
So,
orchard grass, it's all orchard grass and brome grass and timothy
right.
stuff,
Yep. All European grains.
But it's stuff that grows all the time. I mean, it's indigenous.
It's heavily vegetated, without a
Yeah,
doubt.
it's got a good base to it, it's got a good bottom. It should be fine.
They are required to do a soils analysis every year. It says they're allowed to use a slow release
Yep.
nitrogen fertilizer. It should be phosphorus-free, though, around the lake.
You can absolutely put that in, because they sell phosphorus-free.
Okay, after September 1st, report of all activities. I mean, we just don't get these sorts of things. So I guess my next thing is if we approve this as drafted, should I provide a copy to each of the people who want to renew licenses?
Give the applicants each a copy and set a meeting for them to appear. It hasn't been cut this year, so we want to get...
Yeah, it would be fall. But so there, what about the
No,
fees?
we want to get them out there right away.
Not before July 31st.
The way things are going right now, what's the date today?
Right, yeah.
So-
They won't even be before us before July 25th.
That's what I'm saying, so we got to get them at the next meeting.
Yep.
So that they can start August 1st and
We've
cut.
told the two that are interested in Half Mile Hill that that's the case. A
would-
license fee on page 4, does that seem reasonable?
What is the $50 fee for? What does that refer to?
To their use of their equipment to hay the field. So they're valuing their services, which could potentially, I guess, I don't know.
I'm sorry, where are we?
License fees, B1.
You don't need a one if there's no two. Could just be me.
I don't remember why that was put there, I'll be honest with you. At some point, someone suggested that we value the value of the equipment, and that's an outdated value. It's double that now. But I
No,
don't,
that's if we wanted additional work done on any of these areas that suits our needs.
Oh, we would hire-
Not so much for the not so much for the farming aspect.
I got you.
Yeah, we would like to go to you first, Mr. Farmer, since you're familiar with the land, but we're gonna pay you $50 an hour for your tractor.
Okay, so.
Well, I think that it wouldn't that be that we would pay it, that we would count that towards their payment, because it's them, we say in lieu of cash payment, the licensee may provide approved by the commission services for maintenance and improvement of the licensed
No,
land.
That's right.
That's exactly what it was for, because this was at Mazarenka,
Yeah,
Mr. Rogers, we asked him to do things from time to time.
Right.
And it was a little-
That's correct. We asked him to use a bush hog to clear some pathways for us for hiking.
Yeah, we should have got him
And-
out there to get some of that multiflora rose out of there.
Well, that's what he did. When he was planting the hill at
Okay.
Mazarenko and harvesting corn, one of the ways he handled the rental fee of the property was to do work for us, barter work. And that's right, that's what the value was.
Right.
But he had like an 8-foot bush hog out there that cleared beautiful paths for, the trails for hiking and everything.
Yeah, we've also had trouble getting in touch with Mr. Stassinos, who's supposed to be doing the
That's how bad
Mazarenko
the
fields.
agriculture industry is, because
See,
that number was good
yeah.
15, 20 years ago, and the number's still good.
I mean, nobody's not breaking my door down to take over my business, it's just, it's something, it's work that people don't want to do. So, just the way it is.
Okay, so leave the fees the same?
But what I was going to suggest also is, I was going to suggest that we make this a multi-year agreement, payable in advance up front. Because one of the things that,
It is a 2-year agreement currently.
a 2-year agreement, okay, so if you want to keep it a 2-year agreement, my suggestion is.
It's up to you. I don't care the longer the better, right? Someone
I-
agrees to
I
do it
mean,
for 5 years, then
I'd make
that's,
it a 3-year agreement.
3-year
and-
agreement.
And I would say that the fee for the 3 years is paid at the time of the execution of the contract up front. We're not going to chase you every year for $360. You pay it up front, and that's it, and just
but
be
if
done.
they propose improvement activities, that there could be an in lieu of, or we're just saying pay the fee up front?
Well, I'm going to say pay the fee up front, and then if they want to make a proposal, let's not,
Okay. Gotcha.
write their plan for them.
Yeah, so I would get it rid, if we're doing that route, we get rid of everything that's not in bold under B, correct? You're telling
Well-
me to pay all the money up front. There's no bartering.
Right, so B, but 2 could
In
be,
lieu
oh, so 2 would be, so we're not going to offer
I
the in
think,
lieu
I
of.
agree with, let's simplify this. Let's
Okay.
make this simple. This is the fee, it's $360 a year, it's a bargain.
You want to do a handshake with somebody?
Yeah, if we want to make a deal later with somebody to do some work, we can do that. I doubt that we're going to need anything done up there, to be honest with you, unless you said there was some stuff that's not bailable. Let's say there's some stuff growing that nobody's going to bail, and you wanted it chopped down, then we'd have to figure out the value of somebody coming in with a bush hog and doing it. And, you know, that's something we can deal with.
Okay.
You know, we can deal with that.
Hey, Jen, on page 5, in bold, number 4, D4, is this language driven by our attorney on behalf of the town, or do you know?
I can review that with town council, but it was probably, a lot of our contracts require that.
Well, I think the terminology you're going to want there, though, is $1 million minimum coverage, naming to the Conservation Commission. Doesn't make
Naming the
sense.
town of North Andover as an additional insured.
As a named insured.
I'm very familiar with that.
As a named insured.
I agree. I agree. That should be corrected, cleaned up. Yep.
So with a $1 million premium minimum coverage, naming the town of North, or with the town of North Andover name,
Identifying or naming the town of North Andover as a named insured.
The contracts I have in town were on my, the binder, it says additional insured, it's a block in the binder.
Yep.
and then it says North
West Town
Andover.
of North Andover.
Okay.
There is one other thing, Jen, paragraph 4. Section E, paragraph 4. That's exactly what we were just talking about, where it talks about stabilizing. They're not destabilizing the hill by cutting the hay. I don't remember why we have a stability clause in there with a surety deposit, because that would only be if they were going to plow.
Okay, so we could get rid of that.
I mean, my suggestion is, unless somebody with a keen legal mind says leave it there, I'd say, I don't think it's needed. Because
Okay.
we're telling them they can't plow the hill.
Right.
So
I thought we were telling them they can't plow it.
we're saying it's a
Without
special-
coming before
it's a special
before us.
application.
So isn't it better to leave it in there? To just give them notice that if you are considering plowing it, we're gonna be looking for this. I mean, I can see take it out, and I can see leaving it in. But I don't think we're ruling out completely
Yeah.
plowing.
Right.
We're not ruling it out. We're not ruling it out. We're
So-
saying it's a separate, okay.
But we
yeah.
haven't been requiring a $500, like, surety bond of any kind, so.
Well, that's part of what I've been saying. We haven't had any competition, and basically they've been holding us hostage. So I'd rather get the user fees up front on a multi-year agreement. If you want to get a security deposit, that's fine, but I don't think it's.
I think that's, so I delete the security
that's what I
deposit
can
part and
understand.
just keep the,
You're saying you're taking a $500 security deposit on every single?
we're not, that's just it,
No.
we're not.
And what I'm saying, this doesn't say that anyway. This says only if we cancel, revoke, terminate, or otherwise expire the license. If you leave it unstable, we're gonna act.
No, it says a performance security deposit to be paid to the commission immediately upon receipt of the license to ensure compliance with these conditions.
If that's the case, it almost doesn't belong in 4 to begin with.
Yeah. I'm fine with 4, but not with the security deposit aspect of it.
So take out the bold.
So we're just requiring to them, if they were to have the site unstabilized, and if they leave, they would have to stabilize it.
Right.
Under E1, if you're going to go with the route of having them pay 3 years of fees up front, 1 and 2 have to be modified to reflect that. 1 and 2 talk about what's being done with unpaid license fee for the remainder of the term, depending on who terminates. So 1 and 2 are going to have to be looked at and modified based upon that 3 years. And in number 3 here, the second sentence says no potion, and I think that should be no portion of any license
Depends on
fee
what you
paid to
grow
the
it.
commission.
We don't know what's, yeah.
Number 9? Number 9?
Exactly.
Well, so 2, we wouldn't need, I mean, we wouldn't need the part where it says the remainder of the license would need to be paid, because we would already have it, and 1 would only be notified if we were going to give them back part of the license fee.
Can I make a suggestion here? Everything under E can go. Every one of those paragraphs, get rid of them all, and just add one sentence that says they're paying the fee up front and it's not refundable. They're paying that.
Well, no, we can leave E, but I'm just saying, we can just say in 1 that the fee, if terminated early, we're not refunding any fees.
It's non-refundable, that's all. Yeah.
We certainly want something in here from our perspective to allow us the right to cancel.
Right.
Based upon,
So we won't require them to pay it because we'll already have it up front.
That's
And
what I'm saying.
B, if we're just saying if we do cancel you, we're not refunding fees.
right.
Either way,
Right, okay. Got it.
simple is better.
Yeah, we just almost limited the page,
Almost.
almost,
It's like the Paperwork Reduction Act of 19, whatever,
whatever.
which never really reduced any paper.
Well, it did, just the size. Now we get that microfilm paper with plans.
He's still reading.
Oh, of course he is.
I just realized I don't have a copy of the DPW order of conditions, but are we moving on to the OOCs?
Or
Well,
just wait.
I think we have to determine if everybody's happy with the
Oh,
license.
okay. I will make all the changes and give it to the potential
Yeah, each,
users
and
and
they've
have
got,
them be
they've
at
got
the
to come
next
in
meeting.
and
Yeah, make
give us a
sure they come in next
presentation.
meeting.
At the next meeting, please. If they intend to cut the hay this year, they got to be at the next meeting.
Gotcha.
Do we need a motion or anything, or are we good as amended?
Yeah, I'll
Everybody
just
good?
make the changes. It's your
All right.
license and,
This was just all.
Done deal, thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, now we have the decision.
Decisions.
One, only one.
All right, let's decide.
The annual.
which one
We
are
have
we doing?
to? I don't think, she only gave me one, because she has like.
We
I
should
see.
have
We'll do the. 1737
and 1738.
Yep.
If someone could lend me a copy of 1737, I only
Here
have
you go.
1738.
This is 1737.
I don't have the 37. 38, we have the 38.
Which one are we doing first?
Let's do 38.
Okay. So this is the garage addition.
No, I have 38.
Um, Some of the more interesting conditions are 35 and 36. Just says that they have to establish an edge of BBW that is currently lawn. Goes on further in 36 to say that the area between A11 and 13 will be planted with 6 native shrubs and allowed to return to a natural state. That's the area of lawn. That's BBW. Plants monitored for a year, monumented with posts, and all the yard debris that's in the wetland needs to come out. He asked that it not be a pre-construction condition, just because, and he's correct, the area is very heavily vegetated with poison ivy. So getting that material out of there while the plants are growing all over it and around it and in it. I mean, of course, it would be a certificate of compliance issue that it be out of there, so, but I think come winter, when everything dies back, it's probably gonna be an easier job. So I didn't write it as a pre-construction condition, but bond was 1,500. All the other standard monitoring conditions. There is a foundation as-built condition because it is so close to the 50. Then I think everything else is pretty standard.
Any questions? No questions? Motion?
I move that we grant the order of conditions for 242-1738, 332 Hillside Road as drafted.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is
All right.
242-1737, annual maintenance report.
I'm just remembering that I've asked DPW now twice, and I get it, they've been super busy, but we still don't have their certificate of compliance from the last one. So,
General maintenance?
yeah. I mean, we can review this, and we have 21 days to issue it. We can issue it at the next meeting. or I can just hold it until they they file for the certificate of compliance. I don't want them not to be covered, but it expires this month, so.
What document do you need for certificate of compliance? Just
I need them to issue
requesting-
the request for certificate of
requesting and we can
compliance.
vote it.
Right.
There's no plans or anything
No.
involved.
No.
You see what's going on day to day.
Right. So I just need them to file it, but I'll tell them I can't release this one until they file for that COC. So I need to get the NHESP, since we just got that letter, I need to reference it here, and I'm going to attach it as well. I do think there needs to be a condition that says that any work will comply with the requirements of that. I don't know if we had that in here before. So these are all sort of what-if conditions. If necessary, the wetland will be flagged. If necessary, they'll use erosion controls. But a lot of these jobs, they send each one to me, and we go out and determine what's needed. So there aren't a lot of requirements in here, like our general order of conditions.
They've done pretty good with the.
Yeah, it's worked out really well. And I mean, there's less need for it now than there used to be, given that the state exempted a whole bunch of new activities. But we still need it for bylaw purposes. So I just need to add that NHESP condition, and I think this is good.
I didn't want to raise the issue in any detail, but generally speaking, when they go in and clean stormwater management areas out, and those are the areas that are most closest to resource areas. I mean, what are the protective measures? Are they asking for guidance from you ahead of time? They just
Yep.
go in? They are?
Yep.
Okay.
So most of the work's been at sort of outfalls of drainage, not really actual structures, but more like where the catch basin outlets, you know, the slope is eroded or the road's failing underneath or something like that have been. We've done a few sort of dredging of ditches, roadside ditches, but Heritage has restrictions on that to be only within 4 feet of the roadway, so it's not like you can be going out into resource areas.
Regardless of right-of-way, just within 4 feet of the
Right,
road?
yep,
Only in areas of estimated or priority?
of habitat, right.
Priority, not estimated?
No, estimated too.
Road.
Yeah.
Road is the right of way of the right of way. Not the.
No, Heritage says 4 feet off of edge of pavement.
Pavement, not a right.
Not roadway.
Not the right of way.
Heritage is clear in it.
Yeah, and they say no replacement of, you know, head walls, culverts, no maintenance to or repair of without their
That's not a
approval.
prohibition, that's under this general maintenance. If there's such an activity needed,
They have to go
File
to,
separate.
they have to go to MISA.
They know,
yeah.
they know.
All right,
Motion? So moved.
as amended,
As amended.
adopt as amended. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
okay, that's
Right,
it.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.